Welcome, brave knights, to our inter-season wrap-up. Please excuse the dog panting and groaning noises that you are about to hear. Our dogs were very eager to participate in this recording, so you may hear a bit of them in the background. So, without further ado, let's tune in.
Can you hear me from here? Can you hear me from here?
I can hear you from there. That's when it starts to get tinny. If you're kind of up close, it doesn't sound nearly as...
So about right here. Ow, that was
Oh my god.
Pause it.
I don't know. We should record this.
I'll just cut it out or put it in the intro of all the crazy. Get up there.
Bo, get up.
Okay.
Get up.
Form a unified front so
Yes,
he can't
I know,
squeeze in.
Good boy.
Between the
Push ourselves
Good
together.
boy.
Good boy. Good boy.
Okay.
All right.
That feels a lot better.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does. All right. So, welcome everybody to the inter-season arc wrap-up, and already we are experiencing a bit of an improvement from last time, as we have 4 people around 2 microphones instead of 3 people around 1.
Our ratio's improving.
Our ratio is improving. However,
We're still only using one table.
we're still only using one table, and the dogs are kind of
Hogging the microphone.
hanging out. So if you hear them wheezing in the background or shuffling around, that's just Bo and Bonnie, the 2 set dogs.
It's part of the authentic experience.
Yeah.
The team
So
mascots.
this is what it sounds like around our coffee table.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yes, welcome to the Chevalier Wrap Up. So we should probably go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Jessica Linkhart. I write, direct, produce, and voice act for The Harrowing of Minerva Damson.
I'm Claire Miller. I did the voice acting for Cornelia this season.
Bo. Wait, can we do that again? He's
Yeah.
not.
We should keep that in.
Okay, try it again.
Okay. I'm Claire Miller. I did the voice acting for Cornelia. Okay.
Oh. Bo.
One more try.
The trick is that you're rubbing his ear as you're speaking, and that's setting
That's
him
what's
off.
doing it.
I was trying to keep him quiet by...
No.
No, that's going to have the opposite effect.
Okay.
Okay.
I just won't
Okay.
touch him. I'm Claire Miller. I did the voice acting for Cornelia this season.
I'm Jamie Sykes, our host's husband, and the guy who keeps dying repeatedly in bit parts.
Hey, no. I'm Mitchell Lewis, and I'm the guy that keeps dying in bit parts. Oh, no, not in this one. Never mind. I'm Mitchell Lewis. I'm the graphic designer, and yeah.
Also voice actor.
Oh, yeah, I am in this.
You did.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I am in this one.
You
yeah.
You did die as a
Yeah,
vampire.
I did die.
You did die as a vampire, and you got to live as
The doctor.
the
Oh,
doctor.
the doctor.
Air
yeah.
doctor.
Was that?
Good doctor.
Dr. Bartle.
Wait, wasn't it kind of not really quite? But you were thinking
His
that
fate was ambiguous.
His fate was
Yeah.
ambiguous.
He didn't die on screen.
I like to think that he survived
I
because he was a good
interpreted
guy.
it as he lived because I wanted him
yeah.
to.
I'm sure that he was smart enough to get away from the unicorn's rampages,
Yeah.
honestly. Anyway, okay, so on this wrap-up, I wanted to talk about a few things, just kind of go through sort of the arc of what it took to get us here and, the experience of making it and sort of lessons that we learned. So, we did it. We came out with the interseason arc, which I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of all the work we put into it. I'm proud of the product itself. I'm proud that we got to do it because honestly, the last few months since October have been rough.
Yeah.
We had a lot of plans for post season 1. We were going to do a episode with dramatic readings of the
transcript
errors,
Yeah.
of which there were many with the auto-generated
Auto-generated
captions. One of my favorites being her ankle slipped into the dick-sucking mud.
Yeah.
There's such golden
I think
classics.
you should have kept that descriptive language in there.
Yeah. Dang, you're right, Claire. Just make sure people are paying attention.
Oh,
That'll
yeah.
really grab them. That was one of the classics. There were a few more. There was this really funny recording where Miranda,
It was as Marks.
as Captain Marks, said, "Faster! We must go faster!" And we all were really excited to just do a goofy little remix of.
It was going to be called the Marks March.
Yeah, the Marks March. So we had all these plans for, content that we were going to put out in the postseason, and, hoped that we would get to season 2 earlier in this year. But of course that didn't happen, and Miranda passed away, and grief has a way of taking it out of you.
Yep.
And making it hard to continue projects, and it did feel very different. But we took some time, recalibrated, made new plans, and so we have a new plan. It's a little bit stripped down from sort of the ambitious pace that we had originally planned, but I think we're doing pretty good with it, and it's more sustainable.
More manageable.
More
for
manageable,
sure.
for sure. And then, we can ramp up again. So kind of regain some of that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when was it that I started writing Chevalier? Do you remember?
Gosh. I want to say around March, maybe?
Yeah, it was at least early this year.
Yeah, I think it was early this year. And
March-ish. It was still kind of cool outside.
Yeah, and I was listening to this song called...
Was it that Lorena McKenna song?
No, I think it was All Things Devour by ACS. Mm-hmm. Which maybe I'll include a link to that.
Yeah.
But I kind of had the idea before of, what would a unicorn be like in the Ordinal Timeline? Because that's just a really interesting question to me. I mean, unicorns originally were monsters, and we've kind of gotten away from that. But I feel like in the Ordinal Timeline, that would still largely be true. So,
I've always liked the darker mythological take on unicorns.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just so much more interesting to explore that purity, but also power and, I guess, savageness or viciousness, perhaps. So, yeah, I started writing it. It was actually really funny because I started writing it, and I got 2/3 of the way through, and I was like, dang, I'm really feeling myself. I feel like I'm on a roll. This is good. This is great. So I was like, hey, Mitch, can I just read this out loud to you while he was playing Minecraft one day? And he was like, yeah,
Not
sure.
sponsored.
Not sponsored. Still not sponsored, but if you want to sponsor us, let us know. So I started reading it out loud to him, and I was really excited, but the further in I got, the more I was just like, wow, this is just things happening, isn't it? I mean, I'm not going to say it was crap, but it sure felt like it. It was probably okay.
It was a rough draft.
It was a rough draft, but, I had to kind of go back to the drawing board because I knew there was something missing. Originally, it was really just going to be about the unicorn, but then I started doing research, and I ran across the myth of Bayard, and so now I have 2 horses in 3 episodes, and I was like, I feel like if I have 3 episodes, I should have 3 magical horses. So, then I started searching for how I wanted to roll in a 3rd magical horse. And then I was just kind of spitballing with Jamie and Mitch about, what's missing. We decided, that there really wasn't an emotional heart to it. So I kind of went back to the drawing board there, went back and just kind of layered in a couple of, I didn't really change much. I just sort of added in a couple of parts and finished it out.
I think the through line that you sort of layered over top of everything was sort of the recurring fairy tale theming. Because previously you had all these events where it's magic death unicorn shows up and wrecks shit. But, you emphasized more sort of that mother-child bond and the passage of stories and the fairy tale elements, and that's kind of the sort of thematic through line that pulled it together.
Fleshed out my character, Cornelia.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Gave her more depth, more motivation.
Because before then, I don't think you ever read the rough draft, but it was...
I don't think I got the very first version.
No, it was, it was just things happening.
Well, yeah, the metaphor I used was like, it was like beads previously, and then you had to put a string in it to make it into something.
Which is interesting, because normally with my process, I usually have a better sense of the through line first. So I kind of did it a little backwards for me this time. But then, I wrote something out. I wrote out the rest of it. I was like, I'm not sure about it. Jamie, can you go read this for me? And he went back into the back room and he read it. And when he came out, he just came over and like kissed me. And I was like, oh. And he was like, basically what you said, which I think was just like, I love it.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things I think you've written, or something like that.
Yeah, no, I really think the revised script is some of your best work yet. And I sat down after the end of a long work day to read it, so I wasn't expecting to do it all in one go, but I did, and nearly cried, if I'm being frank. But yeah, it came out a banger. It needed that little bit of extra polish to push it over the edge, because previously it was just kind of flat, but it needed that extra texture to really bring it home.
But then it came together. So then, we're like, okay, we've got it. We're gonna turn it over to production. And one of the first things that kind of jumped out at me once I started thinking about how to turn this into an interseason arc was, I don't really think about the podcast angle of anything that I write until after I write it. I'm more interested in writing the story first. Hi, Bo. I'm more interested in writing the story I want to tell first and then figuring out how to adapt it. And that's when I realized that the torture scene was in there.
Yeah, you were gonna have to soundscape somebody getting their arms torn off.
Yeah, and then kind of being, another person being tortured. So that was kind of interesting, because we all had to kind of have a discussion about, like, how do we want to do this? Because obviously this is pretty, like, serious and visceral subject material. Yeah. It's intense, and it could make a lot of people uncomfortable.
And then I was just like, it's a horror podcast. You need to make it as visceral as you possibly can.
Yeah,
and make it as, actually concrete as possible.
I think what we ended up deciding on was making something that was effective, because we didn't want it to be, like, gore porn.
No.
That's not our style.
Yeah,
we are not interested in that.
This isn't like the Saw franchise.
Yeah. No, I don't want gratuitous gore and violence, I guess. But this was a scene where I was like, I guess I really wanted to demonstrate how,
it served the purpose of the story.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and this also serves purpose, like, later down the line, because vampires are something that come up for repeatedly throughout the Ordinal Timeline and the stories that I am telling and have told and have already written. And I think it's important to establish
how brutal they can be.
Yeah, how brutal, not they can be, how brutal they are.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're not like low-level mooks that are just dying by the dozen, like in Buffy or Skyrim or whatever have you. Mm-hmm.
They're scary, they're intense, they are genuinely a real threat. They are basically
they're tigers on two legs.
Yeah, but I mean, also, they're all the scariest things about humanity. Because humans, originally we were pursuit predators, where we just chased animals down. And vampires are like the ultimate version of that, because they don't need to breathe and they don't have hearts that can burst. They can just keep coming. So yeah, I really wanted to kind of explore that a little bit more. So anyway, and it was effective. I think we did that effectively.
I would agree, because on my independent listen through, that scene did make me a little bit nauseous. But
yeah, like when we were recording it, it was a struggle, because it's my first time voice acting, and to try
you did fabulously, by the way.
Yes, we're super proud of you.
Thank you for that. But I tried. I feel like I improved over the course of the season, but trying to voice act a torture scene for the first time was way more involved than I had thought it would be.
Well, and it's also awkward because before there's the actual like sound engineering, you're just kind of like grunting into a microphone or like screaming or making like weird sounds that out of context are just
Yeah, it was really
weird.
hard to go there by yourself, just like speaking into the microphone. But then when you hear the finished product and how it all comes together, you're like, wow.
yeah, which you
It
know,
actually does sound like I'm dying.
This isn't a scene that any of us could have method acted necessarily. So
Yeah.
it took some forethought.
But even though I voiced it, like Jamie said, listening to the finished product, I too was like, this is making me a little uncomfortable.
that's the magic of soundscaping, baby. So that was one of the first things that happened in like as we entered production was trying to figure out what we wanted to do with the torture scene. But you know, the rest of it was bringing Claire on board and working with her. And like I said, I'm like, I'm so proud of you because Claire really came in there and she didn't have any experience with voice acting. Kind of had just
Or
gotten
podcasts.
into or podcasts. Had just kind of gotten into D&D, so it's kind of hard to like learn how to slip into a role. You know, that takes practice. But like she dedicated herself and she practiced, and like there was a noticeable jump. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with you.
Thanks.
So
I am
that was
too.
really cool. Yeah, because that was really awesome to see.
One of the hardest things for me was getting over how much of an accent I realized I have when listening to myself speak.
But I think that's like everybody. Everybody has to. Everybody has those little
Ticks.
and the accent and slurring and eliding words and things like that.
But especially living in the South, I realized listening to myself voice act that I drop the ends of words and I don't pronounce the ing all the way, and so
Yes.
I really had to struggle and work at that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like in my mind, overpronounce it
Yeah.
so that it would sound normal.
Yeah.
Speaking for a recording just feels bizarre
It really
when you're not
does.
used to it.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, I was really impressed with your work this season, Claire, because like, you came in without previous experience and into not just a main character, but the main character of the season. And that's cool as hell. You did a great job.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting because I feel like for Claire, I think you were really worried about overacting in the beginning, so you underacted. So we had to work on like being like, no,
Yeah.
it's okay, let it out. And for Mitch, it was like the opposite.
Too
was the
much
opposite.
ham.
I was like, okay,
Ham.
actually, you know,
Tone it down.
bring
We need to
bring
shave
it
the
up.
ham.
And then like it's like, oh, I'm dying now? Oh, sweet.
See, that was
Unleash
perfect.
the ham.
That was, when
Yes.
you could unleash your full potential.
Well, yeah, whenever those dying scenes are honestly so much fun because you can really like,
Just
There
go
is
over
no
it.
dignity.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
okay. It's
yeah, it
perfectly
should
fine.
sound kind of like weird and just gross and over the top. So, but yeah, with the speaking parts, we had to be like, okay, come back a little bit. But that's kind of the cool thing is, again, like just like last season, is learning to work with like different people and what they need and figuring out how to direct and kind of
Tailor their talents.
yes.
Well, and I'll say you have gotten better at directing too.
Aw.
You're finding the thread of what your actors need faster.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't imagine working with another director for the first time because you were so patient
Aw,
and you would
thank
let
you.
me, re-say it as many times as I needed, and you would point out gently, like, oh, okay, I think maybe you should say it more like this, and this is what I want, and then I could be like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad that worked out. So I'm always worried that I'm like really overbearing.
No,
but
no.
Okay.
With my experience or whatever, because like I'm it's difficult for me to try and I guess read through as well as act through, and so like I have to reread it slowly.
Well, and that's also
and then work through it.
That's also my fault because honestly, I should have given you those. So okay, confession time.
She just tossed him in the booth.
I just tossed him in the booth because I had to go on a trip, so I was like finishing up the last like episode. I think like the second half of the second episode and the last whole episode. I was doing that in a crunch. So
Like
I
in
didn't,
4 days.
Yeah. So I didn't have time, and I just was like, okay, Mitch, get in here. Here's your lines.
Into the goblin booth.
Yeah,
Go,
go,
go, go.
Into the goblin booth with you.
Do you need a directorial pitchfork to go in the goblin booth?
Yes. This time, for season 2, one of the takeaways, which we will revisit at the end of this conversation, is give everybody time to learn their lines.
Maybe do some table reading.
Yes.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna do. And then Jamie was really cool because I think last season, you were really you were really tense. You were so like focused on controlling your voice and enunciating and things like that that you weren't being as expressive. And I think we improved with that this season too.
I'm honestly really happy with my Necromancer performance in episode 3 because
Yes.
like the little bit parts throughout, I was still kind of in my head a little bit, but I had loosened up enough by that point that I just kind of went for it.
Yes.
You got a little bit of ham in there. And
But it was
good
good because he's
It's a nice
he's the
cured
villain.
ham.
You know,
Yeah, he's the big bad.
yeah, we got to see him for 2 seconds before Cornelia cut his head off.
Yes.
But
Well, and honestly, I thought it was really cool. It was kind of like, so Claire and I recorded our lines for that scene like days apart, but it really sounds like we're playing off of each other.
Yeah.
And it was really cool how that turned out.
yay. Yeah.
You're not headless. Let's change
fix
that.
That is such a good line.
I love saying
It
that
was
line,
delivered
honestly.
so well.
Oh my gosh, it just makes me so happy. Sorry, I'm just like,
Yeah.
yes, everybody liked it.
I mean, this thing pulled together.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was, you know, it's interesting too because I feel like I don't typically write the mother-daughter relationship. We do not have children. Typically, I focus on different kinds of relationships.
We're the typical childless millennials.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are. All of us.
Unless you count Bo, who's sighing into the microphone right now.
Dog children.
Dog children.
For babies.
My babies. Yeah, this was really different for me. This was really outside my wheelhouse as far as like character relationships and motivations and, you know, emotional through line. And I think it really worked out. And it kind of like, I think, expanded my horizons. And now I kind of feel like I can see the possibilities of exploring some different dynamics than I typically stick to in my writing. So that was cool. It's always great when you can like learn something from
Yeah.
what you're making.
It definitely expanded my talents because it's just so cool to like, you know, learn a different skill set and to see that if
Yeah.
I applied myself, I can improve at it.
Yeah,
So that,
yeah.
that
Really
was really
quickly,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but you were sort of talking about the mother-child relationship.
Yeah.
I think the two of us were talking when I picked her up from said trip. We had like a 3-hour drive on the way back, and we were talking about, like, I thought it was really cool that what this story does, it's a little bit different than a lot of stories, not even just Jess's stories, but just stories in general, is like, it is a mother who has lost a child who gets to be a hero and gets to be the center of the story, and she doesn't like get a replacement kid at the end of the
Yeah.
story, because like I feel like a lot of arcs that have like, you know, loss as sort of the central theme, the resolution that we see often is just like, oh well, here's a kid, ta-da.
Yeah.
But just like having Cornelia be able to like come into her own as a character and not quote unquote solve the
Yeah.
loss,
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal.
Well, and it's just rare to have a mother as the main character anyways.
Yeah.
Whether
Yeah.
or not she lost her child.
Yeah.
Well, and just the fact that you can't really, I don't know, and maybe this is, I mean, maybe this was kind of fueled by, you know, the grief of our recent loss, but you can't replace people.
No.
It doesn't try to fix Cornelia's grief.
Yeah,
You know?
you're not throwing a patch on it.
At the end, she does kind of come to a different sort of like emotional state, but that
I
isn't.
think she learns to like utilize her grief in a healthy way.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
honestly, that's
Well, and that like
That's
her
the key, yeah.
her love for her daughter and, you know, sort of the memory of her daughter's love protects her. It is pure and good.
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't, it doesn't,
Take away from the pain of it.
it doesn't, yeah, it changes it and makes it more manageable in a way that it hadn't been before. I think that she was managing it, but it still ached a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Still a raw subject.
but by the end, she feels like empowered to change her
Her own life.
and hopefully help change other people's lives.
Yeah, the last line of this season, I'm just like, ooh, chills. Let's make an emperor bleed.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you made like a comment about, grief and how it affects you. Do you think like writing this kind of helped you process everything?
Yeah, I mean, I process a lot of stuff through writing.
Yeah.
That's my go-to. I wrote some other stuff at the, like in the first few days that's like really raw, and I still can't really go back and read it because it's like makes me cry.
Yeah.
But this, I think, was a little bit more a different way to work through it. So, and to try to do some like alchemy on that grief. So yeah, it definitely, I feel like you can see sort of like echoes of that, and some of the things that Cornelia feels at the end when she's just sort of like crying on Bayard. I was like, dang, I really did pull that from a deep place.
Yeah.
So that was real. But that's what art should do.
Yeah.
You
It
know,
should reflect your feelings, how you're dealing with things, and it should help you process.
Yeah, I think it definitely feels better when you can tell it's more authentic in its feeling.
Well,
Yeah.
it makes it real for other people, too.
Yeah, and hopefully helps other people. But if nothing else, like one of the things that I am proud of and happy about with this arc is that, yeah, it did help me. It works through some things. So, and now it's out there. It didn't just stay in the shadows. Like we transformed it. We made it. We put it out there. So that's a triumph. So I'm going to go ahead and move into favorite parts of production. Did you guys have any favorite parts of making it? And for Mitch, this includes like the art assets that are beyond just the production of the podcast itself.
Well, let's start with you.
Okay. I honestly enjoyed working on the episode like thumbnails. Yeah. Because for a little bit, like it was just a sketch, and
Which I should probably put up sometime.
Yeah, you
I think
really
it'd be
do.
cool to like
Put
yeah,
them on your Patreon levels.
yes, or Patreon, or even just Instagram or
Yeah.
something. My website. I don't know.
They'll make it out there.
We'll figure it out.
So, how I usually do my processing is I work in shapes, and so. I don't know, whenever we were working on the harrowing stuff, there was like just sketches, and like this thumbnail set was really, really fun to work on. Since it's a story of 3 horses, why don't we just like layer the horses on top of each other?
Yeah, I think originally I had the idea of transposing those two over each other, and they're sharing like an eye. But then we were like, but there's a third horse, and that's where you came in. You were like, but what if we did it this way?
What if we separated them out a little bit and then have the third one come in there?
Yeah.
It turned into a puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like color like combos and stuff like that was also pretty fun, because originally like the very first iteration there was like a blood orange almost for the background.
Yeah, it was weird.
It was really pretty though.
It was, there was one of them that looked very like high noon western.
Yeah.
Which was actually really cool, but I was like, damn it, it's not right for this.
Not quite the vibe.
We're in the Ardennes, not in the West, which actually quick caveat, if there's a problem with scale in the Ardennes, like how, because I'm an American, I
think we all are.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have trouble understanding how big or small Europe is. So I don't actually know if it would take, how long it would take to get across the Ardennes on horseback. It's probably a lot shorter than I'm thinking, because my only frame of reference is like the Appalachians and the Rockies. So, just so y'all know, that's
Also, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Midwest, it is flat. There is no mountains hardly.
Which is where we are.
And it is like, it takes us hours of driving 70 miles an hour to get anywhere.
To get anywhere. Yeah. I mean, and I'm a Texas gal. I was raised in California as well, but for a big chunk of my life in Texas, and I still go to Texas all the time to see my family, and it's a huge state. So
my main complaint about Texas is always that there's too much Texas. Yeah.
But just quick apology to people who actually live in that area. I might have gotten it wrong, but, the power of the imagination.
I think you can make some allowances, because your characters got lost at several points. So, even if they weren't going in a straight line across the Ardennes.
Well, yeah, and there's a reason they got lost several times. It was to give me the extra time.
The leeway.
Narrative magic.
Yeah. So, I'm an American trying to write things happening in Europe with basically Google Maps and pictures to aid me. So, suspend your disbelief. But I'm sorry. Okay, Mitch, sorry. We had the high noon thumbnail.
Yeah, no, just working alongside you, just having you sit next to me on a couch is really kind of comforting because...
Really?
Yeah, because you have, such, an impeccable kind of idea in your head, and you want it achieved that way. And that actually gives me, a lot of, oh, okay, well, to achieve this, let's try it this way, let's try it this way. It gives me a box to be hey, stay in this box. I'm oh, okay, well, this is underneath the box. It's still technically the box, but let's try it this way.
That's good, because I always get a little worried that I'm no, this way, this way.
A high degree of precision is involved with your vision.
Well, and I think it's really cool because I think that we are kind of pushing each other outside of our box and stretching ourselves in different ways. So, yeah, I mean, it's always really cool getting to work with you because we kind of challenge each other.
Well, you're exceptionally receptive, too, because, I come up with a weird idea and you're okay, let's try it.
Yeah.
And, you don't, if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, well, we both figure it out.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a better client relationship than you usually have.
Yeah.
I would much rather work with someone who tells me what they want than someone who's, kind of iffy on the details, and then you end up with something that they didn't actually want.
Yeah. All right, so who else? What was...
Well, I've got, 3, and I've already said all of them, actually.
Oh.
But the initial read of that revised script was really something else. It was a really cool experience. The performance of the Necromancer scene, getting to just sort of get phlegmy and gross. Production note, we had a big mug of tea in the booth, and I was just half filling my mouth with tea to simulate the sort of viscera, the wetness of it all. And then just the final listen through of getting to hear the final product come together. That's in every hobby I have, I love watching process. That's most of what I watch on YouTube is just people building stuff.
Yeah.
So getting to see that process come to fruit is always extremely satisfying for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, listening to the final product was one of my favorite things, too, just because it sounds so much better when it's all together, and with the sound effects that you added, that really set the mood for the whole thing.
Speaking of, okay, so Jess sort of disappeared into the booth for a little while, and then came out being hey guys, listen to this, and just came out with the unicorn sounds that she composited together, and we were just whoa, what the hell?
Well, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how you assembled that? Because that was cool.
I thought, the first time I heard that, I thought that was pre-made up. I didn't know that you created that.
Yeah. So, I
handcrafted.
I created it from a bunch of different sort of pre-existing clips.
That's how sound engineering works, baby.
That's probably one of my favorite parts of the production, actually, was because this was one of the challenges. There were a couple of, I think every season has its challenging audio engineering things.
And aside from torture.
Yeah, aside from the torture, the other one was the unicorn sounds. And that being said, I'm an amateur. I'm doing this just... I'm sure maybe this isn't actually that hard. I'm just kind of feeling my way through this stuff intuitively and teaching myself on the fly. But I had never really layered sounds like this before, so yeah, I went in, I really wanted, I think originally I was looking for donkey braying, because when you filter that through some things, it sounds really like gnarly.
Yeah.
It sounds like scary.
These are scary.
Yeah,
They can be.
They can be.
Yeah.
They are.
But they're also so cute.
It's a disguise. It's
Yeah,
a ruse.
it's a
Don't
trap.
fall for
I
it.
love them though.
So I went in there and I couldn't find the sound sample that I wanted on the service that I have. But I did find, like, you know, elephant roars and bear sounds and, like, geese honks and, you know, and of course lions and leopards and tigers and,
bears,
stuff.
oh my.
Literally lions, tigers, and bears. I just kind of worked with them and layered them. You know, took the lions, tigers, and bears, and elephants, and geese, and everything else in between, and tried
Stuck 'em in a blender.
Yeah, stuck them in a blender. Tried to like line them up with each other, and that created the unicorn sound. So
Which, honestly, I just love how it turned out. It's so surreal sounding.
yeah, I think so. I think my favorite part of production, other than writing it, because writing is almost always my favorite, was really the part where I think once I started actually audio engineering episode 1 and it started coming together, because before then I wasn't really sure how it would turn out. I kind of felt rusty with the whole soundscaping thing, and I was worried it would be like boring or something.
Well, and from the spouse perspective, she was also really worried after season 1 coming together so well that it was kind of a one-off. Like,
Yeah.
Can you catch
Like a fluke.
Yeah, can you catch lightning in a bottle more than once?
Yeah, I mean, I was really worried about that. But then I started doing all the soundscaping and the like sort of musical cues and stuff for episode 1 for The Fate of All Unicorns, and it just I could feel it. And then getting to the unicorn part, I was like, hell yeah, sick. Like,
Yeah, that first appearance, that's when I got sold. Like, oh, here's where it's going.
yeah. So I think that was my favorite part of the actual like production of it. And what about you, Claire?
Oh, well, like I mentioned, I liked hearing the final product all come together. But just getting to work with all of you guys was pretty fantastic. And I loved being a part of the process.
Yeah.
And it was really fun.
Well, I'm just thinking about the times that, you know, you had... I love this. Sometimes, like, props really help.
Oh,
With the,
yeah.
with voice acting in the booth. So for some of those like more intense scenes,
I definitely had to utilize the props when voice acting. So at some of the scenes where I'm talking to my horse or my daughter, I borrowed a little stuffed animal to look at to like visualize, and then I used my pocket knife when I was like threatening the sorcerer at the end. That might have been one of my favorite things to act with, was like
the
injecting the menace and like
Oh, yeah.
brandishing my little pocket knife and
Yeah.
being like,
I mean, it worked.
yeah, it worked. It was great.
so that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess, you know, you also threatened the vampiress too.
Yes,
So,
in part 2, that was fun too.
Well, and it was also interesting. I work from home, so I was just in the back room working when they were recording the fight and torture scenes. And there were a couple of video calls where I had to give disclaimers of, there is not a murder occurring in my house. We're recording a podcast in the other room.
Yes. A screaming in the background, I'm sure, was very
You had to
helpful.
give that.
I did. Yes.
That's hilarious.
It turns out I had a video called at the same time slot.
yeah. But yeah, and the vampiress was really fun because
Working from home is fun.
yeah, the joys. The vampiress was kind of fun because I think Claire really wanted me to try to like ham it up and do sort of like a
There's a secret recording where she did it.
do like a sort of a German accent, and I just end up sounding like Frau Brucher.
From Young
Frau
Frankenstein.
Brucher. Yes. And, you know, I don't know, maybe someday we will do a, like...
Comedy
A
recut.
comedy recut of certain parts of the...
The Rocky Horror Picture Show version of
Chevalier.
Chevalier.
I mean, in that comedy recutting, definitely, like, in the background, whenever the unicorn is about to appear, always I want to be with you,
Yeah.
and just crashes
We
through.
cannot afford the licensing
Yeah,
for that.
that's a licensing issue, but that would be really fun. Or the Nyan Cat.
Oh,
Yes.
gosh.
You can tell how old we are.
Like, keep the visceral, like, vampire stomping sounds, but
Yeah.
with Neon Cat playing in
Yes,
the background.
yeah. Yeah, there's or you know, have like squeaky toy sounds or something.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe
So-
maybe one day.
If enough people want it.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the Harrowing Patreon if you would like to hear us eventually make a comedy recut of this.
Yes.
Monty Python style with like coconut shells
Oh,
clopping.
yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that would be,
Yes.
honestly, I feel like that'd be a bit easier than what I ultimately did.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
remember you said the horse sounds gave you so much trouble.
Wait, is that a good kickoff for least favorite parts of the season?
That was lessons and takeaways. I was gonna ask if you guys had any favorite scenes or characters, but
Oh yeah, let's do that first.
if you would like to hear the comedy recut of Chevalier, subscribe to our Patreon today, and then just send us a message or comment. Like, if we get enough people, we'll start working on it. But anyway, yeah. So, favorite scenes or characters? Anybody have any of those?
So I really liked the vampiress. I liked how you voiced her.
Oh,
She sounded
the not Frau
exceptionally...
Brucher.
Yes, she sounded exceptionally threatening just by
And
how
evil.
soft
Yes.
she was speaking. And, like, it paired really, really well with, like, you know, her just casually ripping off an arm. Like, this is nothing.
Well, yeah, me and Jess talked about that. She was trying different things for the vampiress, and she went for the soft delivery, and I was like, yes, that one. That's the one.
Yeah.
I loved Bayard.
Yes.
Honestly, yes.
Oh, just like a big bay stallion. I was like, oh, I want to cuddle him.
Such a comforting presence.
Well,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like, even though there's, like, not a lot of sound cues involved with Bayard, like, the narration around him does give him a lot of personality.
Yeah, I liked reading the story parts about him too, even when he wasn't physically in the script.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Well, actually, and I liked learning about him because one of my favorite parts of your writing is learning about all the different myths that aren't in, prevalent in mainstream culture. So I
Yeah.
love learning the mythology behind all the magical horses in this episode.
Honestly, I
Yeah,
just kind
Bayard's
of...
a deep cut. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, I just kind of accidentally ran across him, but then I was like, I can't not use this information. If there's like a mythical magical horse in the Ardennes, which is where they are, like, who would I be if I didn't, like, make reference to that? Okay, Bo. Okay. But
Bayard
that's
now voiced by Bo.
well, in the comedy recut, we just do like a
Bo.
what's that? Oh, well, I wasn't gonna say that, but I was gonna say, like, actually have him like talk, but in a, what is that horse's name in like classic, like the
Oh.
60s or 70s or whatever?
Ed.
Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed's voice, like,
Hello, Cornelia.
it's okay, Cornelia. I'm here.
Hop on.
Hop on up.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine that voice like right after the tortures? The juxtaposition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, we're workshopping this already.
Yes. This is what the process is like, people.
Honestly, yes, this is a window into what. But for my favorite character, I would say like Mitch, I really enjoyed the vampiress. Like that the presence of it all. Honestly, I feel like she was more menacing than the Necromancer, but that
Yeah.
could be because he was sort of paced by the time you get to actually talk to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I would say that's my choice too.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
She had dignity and flair, and the Necromancer did not.
Well, yeah, I love a villain with panache.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think, Cornelia is obviously one of my favorites because she's the main character. And I really liked Rosamund, too. Even though she was just kind of, like, a bit grumpy. I guess because I have all this additional information about their stories in my head.
Yeah.
But just, like, that Rosamund had gone through a lot, and she was still trying to make it work.
Yeah.
I was almost gonna say Rosamund also because I just liked her stoicism and
Flintiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
an older woman, who's still rugged and
Yeah.
getting it
Kicking ass.
done.
Yeah.
Her demise, man.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have anything to say to that.
It just
It's
is
a
what it
rough way to
is.
go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we got to be introduced to a lot of characters in this one.
Yeah.
Because there was also Angle, and he was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked Angle. I mean, he was helpful. And Dr. Bartle, of course, was a kind soul. So, yeah.
I think Bartle and Engel are also a good example of, like, when you're telling stories in this setting, you're not trying to make it's that, it's World War One. Clearly the Germans are the bad guys. Like, it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah.
German High Command is the bad guys, but the boots on the ground guys, they're just people.
Yeah, they're varied.
Yeah.
Well, and I really wanted
Well, some
to...
of them are piss evil, like the Necromancer is a German soldier.
Yeah.
But so are the sweethearts in this particular set of episodes. So.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, in this set of stories, of course, Germans are often going to be the antagonists. And it is true that in World War One, the Germans were coming out swinging hard. They were doing some really
detestable things.
Yeah, that was shocking to the world. So that, they were being aggressive as part of their strategy. But I definitely don't want to make it seem that, like, Germans are bad, you know?
Just faceless evil.
No,
like,
because
it's
that's
more complicated.
It's never, that is never the case. It is always more complicated, and I don't want to paint everybody with, like, these people are uniformly good and these people are uniformly evil, because that's just not how it works.
Well, yeah, like, in some of the bonus content she's working on, like, everybody's up to some kind of mischief.
Yeah, I have a Patreon, like, maiden tier exclusive series called The Delilah Documents. And, essentially there is a sister scribe in 1933 who is going through a bunch of old wartime documents. And some of these documents are talking about things that were happening in the war that she had no idea were happening. That the order was...
That the English were getting up to.
Yeah, that the British were getting up to, that the French were getting up to, that the Americans were getting up to, and the Germans. And there were other factions, obviously, in World War I, but I'm kind of keeping it a little more to like, Western and Eastern Europe.
Things you're familiar with.
The European theater.
Yeah, the European theater. But yeah, I mean, everybody was up to something. And all of them were up to no good. And I say that meaning that they were doing things in the interest of, ostensibly in the interest of national security, that could ultimately become problems later down the line. But, so they were doing bad things, but I guess their reason was...
For the greater good.
Yeah,
the greater good.
Yeah, to protect their people.
Yeah.
But the order, being...
what it is, and more of a neutral party, was like, we gotta keep an eye on this.
We gotta keep an eye on this, and sometimes stop it, because this is going to turn into something much worse.
Magic's gonna get out of hand.
Yeah, magic's gonna get out of hand, or, maybe humans shouldn't be dabbling with these things. But, so
subscribe if you want to hear more about magical espionage.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about the Delilah Documents, because it will kind of, it's telling its own stories, but it also gives insight into things that have already happened in the Harrowing of Minerva Damson and, like, the interseason arcs. But it also is setting up things for projects that are, years out, but that I already know what's going to happen. So I'm already, like, sort of laying...
And they tie in directly to Chevalier, too.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, more of that will be explained in the Delilah Documents, of, like, well, what was the package?
Yeah.
Why was it that important? So anyway...
and also the thumbnail's a banger.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes. Mitch designed it with me. I should also include the, like, concept sketches of that one too.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. So lessons and takeaways. So for me,
no more horses.
No more horses.
If you want to elaborate,
if anyone goes anywhere in my setting, in the podcast, it's going to be on foot or in a car or
train.
From a boat or a train, but no more horses.
Do you care to elaborate on this?
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, the website that I work with for sound samples only has so many sound samples for horses galloping, like trotting, cantering, or galloping. And they're not always galloping at the right speed or whatever, and most of these clips are like just a few seconds long. So for some of those longer scenes where, you know, they're running for a while, I had to try to loop the galloping sound together for, you know, like 30 seconds at a time or something. And that got to be a real pain really fast.
Well, and as an aside related to that, like, Jess grew up with horses, so she knows exactly what it sounds like for it to sound like a canter, a trot, a gallop, a walk. So she's really picky about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not satisfied with what I did, but at a certain point, I just kind of had to move on.
From somebody who doesn't know anything about horses, I literally cannot hear anything wrong.
Well, and
I
also,
thought it was fine.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad. I also, you know, horses, to give that sense that they are there in the environment, they're making noise, you know, so I had to find the right noises.
That didn't detract from the...
Yeah, it wasn't distracting or whatever.
Wait, you're saying that you're a horse girl?
I am. I
had
am.
no idea.
I always have been.
I always have been. Well, and it's funny because I come from a whole family of like horse girls and horse people. And so one of my first drafts I sent to my mom, and it was like, hey, 'cause, you know, I'd already let a few different people read it, and they were like, wow, it's so great, and like, it sounds like you really know horses, and like, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, hell yeah. So I sent it to Mom, and my mom called me, and she was like, okay, well, you know, this is wrong, a horse person wouldn't do this, the horse wouldn't react that way, blah, 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 and just like completely eviscerated everything that I'd done. Yeah, and you know, I didn't take all of her suggestions, because I was like, there's some things that I need to keep for like the story's sake, but I did try to incorporate most of them, and it probably did make it stronger, but it was a little bit demoralizing to be like, to be so proud of myself and be like, well, you know, when I was a kid, I grew up with horses, so I know like about this, and to, you know, have my mom immediately be like, no. So anyway, but yeah, that was probably one of my major lessons, takeaways, is no more horses. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. Also, to try to budget myself more time, you know, let people read their lines ahead of time.
Highlight the script.
Yeah, highlight the script.
That was a major help for me, was highlighting my lines, so I knew.
Well, and Cornelia, like, Claire did have her lines for a really long time because she was the main character, so she had to. But with the like sort of bit parts, I just sort of like rushed them through. So I do need to give myself more time. It's gonna be really interesting with season 2 because, like, kind of in the middle of production, I'm going to be going to see my sister in Ireland for like 3 weeks. So most production is going to pause for 3 weeks, but I really do want to get season 2 out, hopefully by like late September and then through October.
Just in time for spooky season.
Yes, just in time. So I'm like, yeah, I think, you know, I just need to give everybody a little more time, like kind of, you know, instead of giving myself like 1 week per episode, given a little bit more wiggle room. And I say this knowing that's not happening for season 2.
Not for season 2, but...
It's not going to happen.
But for future reference.
Yes, for future reference. You know, maybe the 3rd time that I do this, you know, I will be like, you know what, let's never do that again. Let's never rush like that again. So those are the 2 that come immediately to mind. Who next?
Well, I learned a lot over the course of the season. I think I learned that using the props to help visualize the setting, and just kind of getting out of your own head enough to really embrace the part that you're voicing.
Yeah, and that's tough to do, to learn how to like sort of don't worry about like if you look silly or anything or feel silly, just like...
Yeah, because full disclaimer, I was never a drama kid.
You're like sitting with like essentially 3 other drama kids.
Yeah,
so...
we weren't like
we were honorary drama
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, like
Probably should have been.
Yeah,
in...
Jess, Mitch, and I were never like official theater kids. Like I was in some middle school productions or whatever.
Yeah.
But we all should have been.
We all
theater
really
kids.
should have been.
The guy without rhythm was in band.
We've got 3 band kids, and then 3 should have been drama kids, and
Yeah,
it's in
I
different
was in orchestra.
configurations.
I was like,
yeah,
I was like the quiet orchestra kid off
Yeah.
to the sides. This was definitely like not on brand for me, but I really enjoyed it.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like the school newspaper kid.
Color guard. Band and color guard. But anyway, that's like a really cool process, and it was really cool to kind of like watch you get to that place where you just like sort of
Opened up.
and like let go. So we'll make an honorary drama kid of you yet.
Oh boy.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. But then, what about you, Jamie?
Honestly, my takeaway is the same as Claire's. Like I said previously, I was really proud of the Necromancer delivery I gave, but it took like warming up through those other bit parts to get there. So I'd like to do like more, vocal warm up and prep prior to being on mic, just so I can basically be at full all the time,
Yeah.
as opposed to like ramping up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I was gonna say, learning how to be emotional without peaking the microphone was so
Ooh.
hard.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's tricky. I always have to watch the little
Yeah.
readout to make sure.
Because, like, trying to yell, but not fully yell, so that it wouldn't, like,
The stage
Yeah,
yell.
the vocal control that takes is a lot. And if you want to get like the nuance of different kinds of feelings in there, it's like even more. And that's the thing, like I didn't realize really before we started doing Chevalier all the things that go into a performance,
Like breaking
a,
down the pieces.
yeah, because you need to have vocal control. You need to
Enunciate.
You need to
Yep.
enunciate.
Inject feeling, but not inauthentic feeling.
Yeah, actually, like act the
Not
part.
sound like you're reading.
You
Not
have to
sound
make
like you're
sure
reading.
that you're right next to the microphone while you're speaking your
Yeah,
lines.
you need to be like a consistent distance from the microphone, and there's all these things that are happening, and I think that I was like 70% there when I first started in season 1, and I learned pretty quick, and I think you guys kind of adjusted pretty quick, but you coming into it with like no experience at all, you were
took
having
me
to
some
learn
time.
all of that on
Well,
the
yeah,
fly.
starting flat-footed, that's rough.
Yep.
And
But
you
really,
did it.
Yeah, you really stepped up.
So, that, but
Hopefully, it can only go up from here.
yeah, well, I think it
absolutely.
will. And again, like, I'm really glad that, you sort of like came in from that angle, because I didn't really think about that before. And it kind of showed me like, dang, all the skills that it takes to just do a performance on the microphone. So yeah, that was cool to watch, and a good lesson for sure, a good takeaway.
One of my main takeaways was I really enjoyed helping you find some specific sounds, like because the first ghost.
Oh yeah,
ghost
yeah.
chorus.
No, it was absolutely a problem when we were trying to figure out
The Hell Beast
the
sound.
Hell Beast sound, that sort of like whistling sound, and the first draft version was absolutely awful.
I mean, we knew it was a placeholder.
But we knew it was a placeholder, but
Yeah,
still.
Jess was just whistling into it, and it was.
It didn't sound
I'm like,
good, y'all.
I
I mean, it was a placeholder.
Yeah.
So
I'm like, Jess, can I please help with this?
yeah, well, because that's the thing. Like, this was like one day before I had to go on my vacation, so I was like at the end
It
of
was
my
crunch
rope.
time.
I was like, I'm so tired. Like, I've been looking for the right sound effect. I can't find it. And then Mitch
Yeah.
was like, shh, it's okay.
It's okay. It's like, delegate.
Yes.
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I like doing this stuff.
And he did dig up some really cool sound effects, and I think one of them made it in. I think actually originally like all 3 of them made it in, but then I I went back and read, and
There's
Yeah.
some
there were some
Uh,
licensing issues, so I took the
so-
like 2 of them out.
Next time, whenever
Next
I do
time,
that, we'll
yeah.
Consult
vet
the contracts guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
consult the contracts guy first. But yeah, that was really great. Yeah,
Yeah.
And you're right. I need to be better about like delegating that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So
It's like, we're a team. If you are like at your wit's end, we want to help you.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
tell
Yeah,
us what we
yeah.
need to do.
yeah,
Episode 2 of 3 just dropped that day, and you have 8 hours before you have to get into a car and leave.
Yeah.
What do you do?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's a good takeaway. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're
Well-
towards the end with the future plans.
Yeah, like how about what we're looking forward to in season 2?
Yeah. The Madigo.
Oh god.
The Madigo.
Madigo.
Yeah, the
Madigo
Madigo
returns.
Yeah.
and it's going to be really cool. Actually, probably right after we end this and after we get lunch, we're probably going to start doing like sort of
Prep.
tests to make sure that we can get its voice right, because its voice is going to be like really cool, I hope.
Yes.
So I'm super looking forward to the Madigo. I'm looking forward to there's going to be some challenges with this season that we're going to have to try to troubleshoot, but I think there's some interesting things happening in this season. So
I think we're up for the challenge.
yeah,
too.
so it'll be fun. We'll learn things along
We
the way.
always do.
We always do, and that's part of this.
You know what they say? Third time's a charm.
Yeah. Actually, one of the major characters for the rest of the arcs is going to get introduced. Not just the Madigo, but another character is going to get introduced
Yes.
towards the end, and I'm super excited.
Me too. I'm very excited from what I've heard.
Yes, yeah. So what about y'all? Is there anything in particular y'all are excited about for season 2?
I get to make a new thumbnail. And new
Yes.
stickers probably too,
Yeah.
right?
Could-
Oh yeah.
we could.
Merch
Yeah.
could be on the horizon.
Yeah, you know, that's
Yeah.
something that I would really like to actually get around to this year, is to actually like at least do some basic merch on like the Patreon and my website.
Well, yeah, like we're approaching double digits of content. I feel like merch is called for at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we love designing that shit.
Oh yeah.
We fucking love it. So we're gonna
Graphic design is my passion.
And your job. Your
yes,
literal job.
yeah,
I mean, you
literal
know,
job.
His day job, too.
Yes.
He's not just doing it on the side.
Yeah. So that's gonna be fun. Eventually, I want to make a Madigo plushie. Eventually, but they're kind of expensive to like prototype. So
Yeah.
I think maybe we should like set a goal for how many like subscribers or like listeners or something that
We could make a cute plushie.
and be
Yeah.
like, aha, limited edition Madigo plushie.
For me, what I'm looking forward to in season 2 is playing a character that survives more than one episode. No spoilers, but that does happen.
Yes, yeah. So
I'm looking forward to doing a different voice.
yes,
Really testing my range.
yeah,
Yeah,
vocal
same
range,
here.
yeah. Oh yeah, but I think all of us agree that the Madigo is
Madigo.
coming.
That's
the
gonna be
Madigo.
Yeah.
Spooky cat, spooky cat,
Yes,
spooky
you know,
cat, spooky
the
cat.
icon, our actual, you know,
There's a reason it's the mascot.
there's a
Let's just
reason
say
why
that.
it's on the cover. Yeah. So in the future, we're going to be putting out season 2. I'm going to be continuing to add to the Delilah documents, probably no less than once a month, but hopefully twice a month. Adding things to the archives.
When are we shooting for inter-season 2?
Ooh, I'm not there yet. We need to get through season 2.
Sure. Yeah.
So, is there going to be a follow-up, though, to Chevalier? With Cornelia, with these characters?
Not with Cornelia, but we do learn through the Delilah documents what they were carrying and why it was important. So I think, you never know, but Cornelia has kind of passed beyond the eye of these stories that I'm telling.
for now.
For now, but possibly forever. Her fate is kind of out there now.
Yeah.
You know, her story, as far as the eye of my stories goes, is told. But that doesn't mean that her story is over, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, within the in-world context. But we'll definitely be visiting new characters in the interseason arcs. And in the Delilah documents, we'll be addressing some stuff about the package that she was
So,
carrying.
for Cornelia, you've told the part of her story that you want to tell for now.
Yeah.
Well, it also helps because, like, you've already established that there's order, chambers all over the place.
Yeah.
And so,
Order
like,
headquarters are
yeah,
like,
Different
it's sort of a
places,
global
different
thing.
times,
Yeah, there's a really
different
vast
specialties.
Yeah, different specialties. There's a really vast playground to play in. And, I think this setting can also, like, I'm telling a lot of sort of like horror fantasy stories, but I think this setting can accommodate rom-coms and,
All
know,
sorts of fun stuff.
just, yes,
Adventure romps.
adventure stories and, I don't know, angsty dramas or whatever. And I've literally written a book that's a like crime noir, you know, sort of story in this setting. That's where this all came from. So I'd love to see all of those things play out in this world. You know, I think that there's going to be 5 seasons. I have
5 primary seasons.
Yeah, 5 primary seasons, and then 4 interseason arcs, which I have, you know, planned out. And then from there, you know, we'll see what happens. I do have an idea of what I would like to do from there. But
yeah, there's other stories to be told, but Minnie's story is planned at 5 seasons. Currently.
So, yeah. Other plans that we've talked about. I know I talk about things all the time, so.
There's all sorts of stuff in the mix, but, you know.
I can't help but be ambitious, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just to everyone listening, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. We're really honored to have you listen to us and with us on this journey.
We hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, definitely. We hope you enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out to us on our Instagram or our Twitter or, you know, on our Patreon. We'd really love to hear what you think. And also, you know, every follow that you give us really helps us.
Get the word out there.
Yeah,
Tell
please.
your friends, your family.
Yeah, share it with your friends, your family, on your social media.
Maybe not your children.
Not your children.
You might want to put a disclaimer about the content.
18 plus.
This is not for children. But, you know, every share and subscribe really, really helps us.
Yeah, we're still a small outfit right now, but I think really our only limiter is how many ears we have on it.
Yeah.
We have lots of plans, as you guys have heard, and lots of content that Jessica is working especially hard on to bring into the world.
So, thank you so much for listening, and hopefully you enjoyed it. And we're really, really excited to bring Season 2 to you. Spooky cats.
Well, and thank you, Lady Linkhart, for pulling this all together.
Thank you. Babe.
Oh, gross.
We're like this all the time.
All the time. So anyway, well, we will go ahead and I think sign off with that. So until next time, brave knights, this is Jessica Linkhart signing off.
Safe travels.
Hope to see you again.
Bye.